Okay, so moving on to the next topic, roots of religion, and following on from that prior topic, just a further point, natural selection unceasingly rejects that which is bad. It preserving and adding up all that is good. Let me, blow that up a little so we can see that. All that is good, silently and sensibly working, whenever and wherever the opportunity offers, at the improvement of each organic being. If this is a truism, then how does religion survive? Religion's extravagance and waste, is it being rewarded? What is the Darwinian survival value of religion? And that's the question the author asks. And so, like any good scientist, he asks the questions, what are the direct advantages of religion? And there is some evidence that people of faith have maybe lower stress. It's not overwhelming, but it might exist. Any other ideas? Well, there is this concept of group selection. Perhaps more cohesive groups are formed because of their commonality in faith and religion, and they tend to survive more. The author is less impressed with this argument. He's not convinced it's a significant force in evolution. It seems that those most fanatical are more prone to martyrdom and less prone to procreating because they're dead. Excuse me. And so that wasn't the most interesting aspect of this topic. What I found really intriguing was this concept of a byproduct. So if it survived, is it due to being a byproduct of something else? And when we talk about byproduct, he uses this as an example, the moth using typically the moon, a celestial body, to navigate at night. That normally works fine because the light rays are at optical affinity and are parallel to the moth. When they use something like an artificial light, however, unfortunately it leads to the moth spiraling straight into the flame and incinerating itself. And so, although fatal in this instance, the moth's rule of thumb is still a good one because sightings of candles are rare compared with sightings of the moon. Evolution has worked, it's just that there is a byproduct cost to that. In the context of our discussion about religion, natural selection builds child brains with a tendency to believe whatever their parents and tribal elders tell them. That's a fact. The inevitable byproduct is vulnerability to infection by mind viruses. The child has no way to distinguish good advice from bad. So this is given as only an example of the kind of thing that might be an analogue to the moth navigating by the moon. It's not a hard fact by any means, but it's just an example of what could be going on. And the author also looks at our psychologically primed for religion. Are we? And the point's being made here that we are instinctive dualists, that we do like to separate mind from matter, and we can. We like to assign purpose to everything, theology, so children do this a lot, clouds are for raining, etc. And we tend to fall in love and act irrationally, and we can all probably agree on that one. So these may be psychological issues or factors that lead us to be more inclined to faith and religion. Just before I finish up on this topic, just a little quick one on the cargo cults of the South Pacific. Really, really fascinating read. I encourage anyone to go out there and read a little bit more about these. The quickness in which a cult or a little mini religion can spring up is astonishing. The author makes the points that pretty much they have in common. These are contemporary religions that are originating from almost nothing, and they have something in common. They are amazing speed a cult can spring up. The speed in which the origination process covers its tracks. It's years, not decades, where they forget actually what originated certain ideas and customs in their religion. Tells us something about our psychology, as there are many instances, and that the cargo cults are similar to each other and to older religions. Truly fascinating what went on there in the South Pacific just around the post World War II. Okay, so that was roots of religion. Now on to the question which everyone seems to ask: can we be good without religion? Studies have shown that there is no significant difference between atheists and religious believers when it comes to making moral judgments. And it would not be a Chalk Smart video if I didn't have Albert quoting: "If people are good only because they fear punishment and hope for a reward, then we are a sorry lot indeed." And the author goes on: "If you agree that in the absence of God you would commit robbery, rape and murder, you reveal yourself an immoral person. If, on the other hand, you admit that you would continue to be a good person even when not under divine surveillance, you have fatally undermined your claim that the God is necessary to be good." And then on to the point of whether we can use scriptures as a moral compass. Moral theologians tell us not to take the Bible as literal fact, because you really can't. It's a bit crazy. But the author makes a point that the fact is many people do take it as literal fact, and often very powerful people. It's not just the Bible here, it may be the Quran or other scriptures that people are actually taking as literal fact. And secondly, the author points out, then if you don't take it as literal fact, how do we take it? As allegory? As an allegory to what? If we do derive our morals from Scripture, we pick and choose the nice bits and reject the nasty. But if we do this, then we are applying some independent criterion, that's important, that is not coming from Scripture. And, just on the nasty bits, where is it? Bits, and pick the nice bits and reject the nasty. Let's talk a little bit about the nasty, because I find it kind of entertaining. So bad stuff in the Bible, and predominantly the Old Testament. We all know probably the first one, Abraham, the founding father of all three great monotheistic religions, was instructed by God to barbecue his son. But, the list goes on. Abraham's nephew Lot offered his virgin daughters to a mob so that they would leave his house guest alone. Get this, this is the quote. The language is just, it's scary. Behold, now I have 2 daughters which have not known man. Let me, I pray you, bring them unto you, and do ye to them as is good in your eyes. What a nasty piece of work this guy is. Lot had sex with both his daughters. A priest handed over his daughter to be gang raped. She died. In Members, the book of Members, in revenge for people worshipping another god, Moses, who you'd think would be beyond approach when it comes to morals, ordered the army to kill all the boy children, all the women who were not virgins. And the quote, but all the women children that have not known a man by lying with him, keep alive for yourselves. Okay, thank you, Moses. And finally, a man was found by children picking up sticks on the Sabbath. A reprimand? You bet. And the Lord said unto Moses, the man shall surely be put to death. All the congregation shall stone him with stones without the camp. He died. Yeah, I needn't go on, but I'd like to. It's kind of fun. So that was Can We Be Good Without Religion? And finally, a very brief topic just to finish up with, a much needed gap. The author's statement here, we have a psychological need for God, perhaps. Imagining an imaginary friend, a father, a big brother, a confessor, a confidant, and the need has to be satisfied whether God really exists or not. So say that's true. I think this is the point the author really wanted to make here was, but could it be that God clutters up a gap that we would be better off filling with something else? So could we fill this gap with something else, perhaps? Science, perhaps? Art, human friendship, humanism, the love of life in the real world, giving no credence to other lives beyond the grave. I think that is definitely the point that the author would like to emphasize. And a final word from Douglas Adams, who the book was dedicated to, and this is his quote, isn't it enough to see that a garden is beautiful without having to believe that there are fairies at the bottom of it too? Okay, so that is pretty much a rundown of the most interesting topics I found in the book. Let me see if I can squeeze all this down. There we are. Yeah, so that's The God Delusion. I really do encourage you to go out and read it. It's thought-provoking, irrespective of where you fall on that spectrum that we talked about in the very top of the show. Yeah, very well considered thought here. So if you do get a moment, this doesn't touch on even scratch the surface of what's in this book. Please go out and read it. The God Delusion by Richard Dawkins. Thank you very much. Until next time.